Rahim, I seek refuge in God from Satan to be rejected. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to another Quran study. Today we will start reading from chapter 2, verse 162. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Eternally they abide therein. The retribution is never commuted for them, nor are they reprieved. Your God is one God, there is no God but He, most gracious, most merciful. Of course, this is, if we go back to, if we go back to the verse again, God is talking about the ones who deserve to go to hell, of course, and one of the biggest misconceptions about hell is that hell is not eternal. So most people, most Muslims actually, the Shiites and also the Sunni Muslims, they believe that they will go to hell eventually, but they will leave hell after paying for their sins. That is the main belief that they have. But we of course know from the Quran that when you go to hell, you stay there eternally, and there are verses in the Quran where God says that the doors of hell will be closed for eternity. The same comes for heaven, of course. Like heaven is also eternal. And in another verse, God talks about the children of Israel. He says that some of them they said that hellfire will only burn them for a specific time, and then when they have paid for their sins, then they will end up eventually in heaven. But of course that's not true. The truth is that when you end up in hell, you will never leave hell. So it's very important, not to end up in hell actually, because it's eternal. And we definitely need to be careful, and with God's help we will not end up being in hell. 164. Overwhelming signs of God. In the creation of the heavens and the earth, the alternation of night and day, the ships that roam the ocean for the benefit of the people, the water that God sends down from the sky to revive dead land and to spread in it all kinds of creatures, the manipulation of the winds, and the clouds that are placed between the sky and the earth, there are sufficient proofs for people who understand. So this is one of many verses in the Quran where God talks about the things that He has created here. For mind who doesn't think and who doesn't think about all these creations, when you go outside, it's actually important for us to look at the sky, right? To look at all the things that God has created, since God is mentioning all these things in the Quran. And for everything that God has created, there is a purpose. Like, there is nothing that does not have a purpose in this world. Like even the smallest creation that God made, right? Like for example, a mosquito. A mosquito has its purpose. The sun, of course, has its purpose. The water, everything that God has created has its purpose. And we as believers, definitely we should think about those things. And the Messenger of the Covenant also speaks about this, right? He gives the example of, when you eat an apple, he says, just don't eat it like that. You need to think about the color, the smell, how the apple was created from the tree, or when you drink milk, for example, how the color became white, because it's made in the belly of the in the body of the cow, of course, but like it's and the cow eats grass, and from that things happen, and eventually you get this thing which is called milk, and it's very good for our bodies and good for children specifically. So we need to think about all these things that God has created. And here God gives the example of the alternation of night and day, the ships that roam the ocean for the benefit of the people, the water that God sends down from the sky to revive dead land and to spread it in all kinds of creatures. So also the manipulation of the wind. So especially in this time where we have a lot of technology, like we have satellites, we have so many things that people before us couldn't see because they didn't have satellites, right? Now we have these satellites. So they didn't have these special type of ships or underwater equipment that people can go there underneath and see very different types of creatures. So in our time, we are witnessing like more things that God has created. We can look like vast in our galaxy. We can see so many things with the telescopes that humans made. So, and of course, he says in the end of this verse, it says there are sufficient proofs for people who understand. One of the things that when I discuss the existence of God, for example, with someone who doesn't believe in God, someone who's an atheist, like the first question I'm asking that person is like, can something that never existed create itself? Because right now we know that the universe had a beginning, right, with the Big Bang, and the Quran, of course, confirms that. So when it has a beginning, this means that it has to be been created by something, right, by something or by someone. So most of the times they don't have an answer for that, right? Like something that never existed cannot create itself, since it was never there. So how can it create itself? So this is also like logically a proof that there is a creator. And in this verse, God says there is sufficient proof for people who understand. So if you would look at all these creatures and all the things that God has created, then it shouldn't be very difficult for you to see God. That he exists. And the title says overwhelming signs of God. So all these things are God's signs. So everything that we see, and actually also the things that we can see with our with our eyes. For example, things that you only can see with using only a microscope, for example. All those things are created by God. And everything that we see is evidence of the existence of God, evidence of a creator. 165. The idols disown their idolizers. Yet some people set up idols to rival God and love them as if they are God. Those who believe love God most, if only the transgressors could see themselves when they see the retribution. They will realize then that all power belongs to God alone and that God's retribution is awesome. So also here we see that God talks about these idol worshippers, that they set up idols besides God, thinking that those have power as well, right? Like we can clearly see in Sunni Muslims or the Shia Muslims that they place these how to say. For example, Jesus, he revived the dead, right? But it wasn't he who did it, or Moses. He performed all these kind of miracles, but actually it wasn't because of him. It was because of God. God is actually one who is doing everything. So, but most people they think it's that person doing that. So what do? They idolize that person because they think it's that person who is doing it. But we know, of course, that everything is done by God and God only. So that's the way to keep yourself away from idol worship. But it's a trick of the devil. He idolizes or he tricks people into idolizing these kind of things, and this is something that we have seen in all these years. People have done the same thing with Moses, then with Jesus, and then with Muhammad. And now they are, but we also have other things, right? Like people idolizing technology, for example. They think that because of the technology that they have, like they can, do some kind of things, especially in our time with, for example, artificial intelligence. They believe that, they can do so many things, but eventually it's God who is doing everything, and He is the one who is giving, He is the one who is placing these barriers, right? We can know and see only the things that God wants us to see and wants us to know. those who were followed will disown those who followed them. They will see the retribution, and all ties among them will be severed. In the footnote, it says Jesus, Mary, Muhammad, Ali, and the saints will disown their idolizers over their resurrection. See also 1686, 35:14, 46:6, and the Gospel of Matthew 7:21 up to 23. Yes, so like I said, those people, they idolize Jesus, Mary, Muhammad, Ali, and the saints, and what I have seen at least is the reason is because they think that they are the ones who are doing all those things. They don't really understand that it's God doing it. For example, Muhammad, the Quran was given to Muhammad, but people think that it's because of Muhammad we got the Quran. But eventually, God just chooses from among His creations. He chooses someone and then gives them a task. And that person is just performing the task that he got from God. So it's important again to understand that God is really doing everything. And the message of the covenant, when he was saying that he was performing the most important khutbah that he has given, and the topic was about God is doing and running everything, it's very important again to understand that this specialty of God, that He is doing everything, and only He is doing it, and no one else besides Him can do anything at all. This is very important to understand and to know, because if we don't know God really how He is, with His abilities, with the real abilities that He has, especially that He is running everything, this means actually that you don't really believe in God. Because you cannot believe in something that you don't really know. You don't know the qualities. That's the right word. The qualities of God. So most people don't know the qualities of God, and because they don't know the qualities of God, they don't know God. And because they don't know God, it's not possible for them to really believe in God. That was the most important thing, actually, basically, the summarized thing of the whole khutbah. And that's why he also suggested us to repeat this new zikr all the time. When we do something or we don't do anything at all, we just need to repeat that God is doing everything, God is running everything. In my personal life, it helps a lot. When there are some moments when I start getting angry, or something happens, for example, and then if I can remember, or at that time when I'm almost angry, then I think of that. No, I'm saying God is doing this, so don't get angry. And if I'm not mistaken, in one of the things that the messenger had written, it said like submitters also can get angry, but they hold up. They are holding up themselves. This doesn't mean that, when you believe that God is running everything, it doesn't mean that we don't get angry or something. We can get angry, of course, but we need to control ourselves. We need to be patient, we need to remember. Sometimes what happens is, when I'm, for example, when I have an angry moment, and if I have a submitter brother or sister nearby, they tell you that, please don't get angry, please remember that God is doing this. God is doing everything, so there is no reason for a submitter to get angry. And of course, getting angry means that you are not submitting to what God has decided. It's very important, especially for us, for people who know this quality of God. It's really important for us to train ourselves, right? That's maybe also very right word to use. We need to train our souls not to get angry, or when we get angry, that we cool ourselves down, and then repeat and remember that God is doing it. And eventually it's going to help, right? Because you remember God at that moment, at the most important moment. You're remembering God, and God is helping, of course. So this also prevents, if you are a submitter who is sincere and who is doing his best, of course God is going to help, and you are going to become happy, right? You're not going to be unhappy. You're going to be happy with the decision that God has made.
And this way we will understand it, right? And also for things that we don't understand, things happen, and then we just can't understand why it's happening. But since we know that God is doing it, then that means like, okay, I don't understand it, but God is doing it, so I just submit to His will, and I leave it up to God, because He is the King, He is the ruler, He decides everything. Like, I'm just someone who's going to submit and then leave it up to God. You know, this will definitely help you, right? I had yesterday we had a discussion with a guy who was very rich and he had so powerful friends before, and he was talking about those people, and he said something actually. He said, you know, I have known so many extremely rich people, and there is one thing in common. And he said they have everything, like they have houses, cars, you know, everything. They can travel all around the world. They have seen so many things. But the one thing they had common, he said, is that they are not happy. But before he said that, I already knew it, right? And I just wanted to ask him. That was that was going to be my question to him. Like, can you please tell me, after seeing all these people, do you think were they happy or not? But before I even could ask this question, he himself said it. He said like they had everything and they still have everything. But one thing is common between them all is that they are not happy. And so I told him, I said, of course, because happiness is a quality of the soul and not the body. Like, it doesn't matter how many mansions or cars you have, right? The messenger explains in the video. And, you know, after 30, 40 years, it's still the same. Like, people at the time when the messenger was still alive, and the example he has given about these people, it's still the same. So, it's not going to matter at all how much money you have. We definitely know that it's a quality of the soul. And I'm just wondering how much time it will take for people to eventually understand. Because like the messenger says that, right? He says like, there are so many examples of these people who have everything, yet they are unhappy. So what do all those other people want? Like, people who don't have money, people who don't have all these cars, mansions, etc., right? But what do they want? If you look at these people, they are unhappy. So, and is that not the thing that people want, right? Happiness, are they not trying to get that thing? and all of them are doing the same thing. But of course, this is a trick of the devil, right? So he's tricking people into believing that they will be eventually happy if they can get the house or the car or, you know, anything that they desire. 167. It says, those who followed will say, if we can get another chance, we will disown them, as they have disowned us now. God thus shows them the consequences of their works as nothing but remorse. They will never exit hell. Like here, in the end of this verse, they will never exit hell. So this is a very strong verse, you know, and it's also very dangerous, like for people who don't take the religion seriously. In chapter 7, verse 51, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there God says, like, those who don't take the religion seriously, they forget, you know, they forget about the hereafter. When they come, we are going to forget about them as well. You know, when that day comes, God says that He will forget them as well. So it's really important to understand that you know, we need to take it very seriously. You know, this religion, this book that God has sent, with all the miracles, like this amazing miracle of 19 that God has sent with this message, is really important. So we need to take it extremely seriously. And here in 167, of course, he said, if we can get another chance, we will disown them as they have disowned us now. So you know, people who think that Muhammad will help them or Jesus will help them when they die, and you know, they are heading towards hell. Of course, Jesus is not going to be able to help anyone. Muhammad is also not going to be able to help anyone, or Ali, or any of the saints. No one is going to be able to help someone, and the messenger says this also, right? He says, look, everyone is thinking about their own neck. Even the messengers, the prophets, they're also thinking about their own neck, because there is a reason why we came to this world. Like, we made a mistake, and then God gave us a chance. And then, we said, no, we want to we want to try, right? We want to see if the devil can be a god, or like, I'm going to prove that I'm going to choose God, right? And then we underestimated the test. So the reason why we are here, not only us, but also the messengers and the prophets, they all are here because of that reason. And all of them are worried about their own necks. So believing that someone else besides God can help you is, of course, idol worship. And in this verse, it's clearly like how more clear can it be? Like, God is explaining all these things to us, and then He gives examples. He also tells us what those people are going to say. Like, this didn't happen yet, right? But those who followed will say, if we can get another chance, we will disown them, as they have disowned us now. So God is telling us what is going to happen and what those people are going to say. And when Muhammad is going to see all these people who were expecting help from him, of course he's going to disown them. He's going to say, go away from me. Like, if I'm not mistaken, there's also the same verse in the Bible where Jesus is going to say, right? The messenger also gave this example. When people are going to say, yeah, but in your name we did this, and in your name we fought and killed people, etc. And Jesus is saying, go away from me. I don't know you guys. I'm far away from you. People who idolized him. The same comes with, of course, Muhammad and the saints as well. 168. The title is Satan prohibits lawful things. Yes, this is also like one of his tricks. O people, eat from the earth products all that is lawful and good, and do not follow the steps of Satan. He is your most ardent enemy. He only commands you to commit evil advice and to say about God what you do not know. Yeah, like the same thing that he did with Adam and Eve, right? He tricked them to eat from the tree. And today he's doing the same thing. Like, he's tricking people to, make things haram, which is not haram, or make halal, which is not halal. And we can see this clearly in almost every religion, right? In Judaism, we can see it clearly in Christianity and in the Sunni and Shia. Islam, we can see clearly that people have made things, prohibited things that God didn't prohibit. It's very important to be extremely careful with that, and only to say that is prohibited what God said. Like, besides that, we can't say by ourselves that something is halal or haram. It's not up to us, because we are not the owners of this religion. We are not the makers of this religion. No one is the owner or maker of any religion. It's God and God only. Like, for example, with Judaism, Moses was not the creator of Judaism, or Jesus was not the creator of Christianity, right? So they are not the ones who are making up the laws. It's God who decides what the law is going to be. But God tells, of course, here clearly that this is a trick of the devil. This is the trick of Satan. He did it before, and he's still doing it. And by now we should actually, of course we know, right? Because we know only to follow Quran, the Quran alone, and nothing but the Quran. This was a clear message that the Messenger of the Covenant came and said, but still we can see between people who call themselves submitters, they promote circumcision. Like this is a topic that we talk a lot about, because this is something that people still use. They think that circumcision is allowed to do, or like we should do circumcision. But it's very clear from the Quran and from the message that the Messenger of the Covenant brought, that we only follow what is in the Quran. The Quran alone, nothing but the Quran. And there is nothing about circumcision in the Quran, or nothing about the other prohibitions that these people have brought, right? in the Quran, there are also verses about for us, which is prohibited. God says, "Tell them in that which in the message that I have received from God, I don't see anything which is prohibited for you except." And then the verse continues, says like blood, an animal that died by itself. The meat of the pig, and things which are killed with and named other names than God's name, right? So those things are prohibited, and besides this, for someone to eat, it's not prohibited. And still they come up with other things, they say, okay, this animal is prohibited, that animal is prohibited, etc. So we need to be very careful in that, because if not, this brings you to idol worship actually. Because we follow the rules of God. If you follow the rules of someone else, then that person or that group of persons or that sect that you're following, you're making that your God. So it's not something that is very some people would say like what does it matter, like eating this or that. It's not really important. The important is to be a good person, believe in God, etc. You don't even have to pray, you don't even have to do so many things, because you have that type of people as well, right? They say, yeah, I don't pray, I don't do none of those commandments of God, but I'm a good person, I'm a good person. Like, how do you become a good person if you don't follow any of these commandments of God? Right? If you would have been a good person, then that means you're following what God says in the Quran, because God is the one who is telling us what is good and what is bad. 170. Maintaining the status quo, a human tragedy. When they are told, follow what God has revealed herein, they say, we follow only what we found our parents doing. What if their parents did not understand and were not guided? The example of such disbelievers is that of parrots who repeat what they hear of sounds and calls without understanding. Deaf, dumb, and blind, they cannot understand. This is also like something which is really common. And most of the people, specifically the ones who I know at least, in my family, in my surroundings, all these people, they're just blindly following their parents. They have learned religion from them, and even if they hear the truth, even if they witness the miracle, they still, keep following their parents. And God says in 171, He says, deaf, dumb, and blind. Like this is really the right definition for those people. And He says they cannot understand. Actually, it's very simple, right? Like when God is sending a messenger, He sends a miracle, like the most amazing miracle ever that we have received. On YouTube, voice is not clear. I don't know how I can change that, but let me see. Okay. I'll just keep on going, brother, because I can change it now. So I was saying, so deaf, dumb, and blind. This is really the right definition for those people, because they have ears but they don't hear. They have eyes but they don't see. They have their minds but they can't use those minds. Since God has sent the miracle of 19, like a very special miracle. The biggest miracle ever that God has sent, proving every other miracle which God mentions in the Quran. And still people are not following it, people are not accepting it. And because of their faith, it's already predetermined that they will go to hell, so it's not going to help at all. 172. Only 4 meats prohibited. Yeah, so this was the verse what I was talking about. He said, "O you who believe, eat from the good things we provided for you and be thankful to God. If you do worship Him alone, He only prohibits for you the eating of animals that die of themselves without human interference. Blood, the meat of pigs, and animals dedicated to other than God. If one is forced to eat these without being malicious or deliberate, he incurs no sin. God is forgiver, most merciful." And the footnote says, throughout the Quran, only 4 meats are prohibited. 6 145, 16 115, Appendix 16, dietary prohibitions beyond this for tantamount to idol worship. Definitely, because why is this idol worship? The reason is, the messenger also gives this example in the interview. He says, when God told the angels to bow down before Adam, when the angels were bowing down, were they worshipping God or were they worshipping Adam? Of course, they were worshipping God since they were following His commandments. So this means that if you say that something is prohibited and you found that thing prohibited because your father is saying that, or the Imam is saying, or any of the saints that you believe is saying, this means that you are idolizing that person. So this is definitely idol worship, and it's not something that is small. This is very important because idol worship is the only thing that God is not going to forgive. So very important to not fall in idol worship. The Haifer, Al-Baqarah. Okay, I have 10 minutes left. Corrupted religious leaders conceal the Quran's miracle. 174. Those who conceal God's revelations in the scripture in exchange for cheap material gain eat but fire into their bellies. God will not speak to them on the day of resurrection, nor will He purify them. They have incurred a painful retribution. This is one of the worst things that you can do, right? Like conceal God's revelations in the scripture in exchange for cheap material gain. And this is also something that they did for when the miracle came out and the messenger was explaining all these kind of things, but the miracle didn't came only. We didn't receive only the miracle. We also received a person which was a messenger of God. So it came with that. The miracle came with a messenger, and accepting a messenger is also a test. So most of these people, in the beginning, they accepted this, the miracle 19, right? All of them, they accepted because it was wonderful. They promoted the miracle. I know, there are videos of Ahmed Deedat, like 1 hour and 20 minutes, I believe. He's talking about this miracle and then trying to explain to people how it works and why this miracle is so amazing and so beautiful, and that the Quran is so amazing with this miracle. Even the computer proves that this book is from God. Like they did all these kind of things until the messenger told them that he is a messenger, and then they start immediately disbelieving in it. And this is also something that we see, right? The messenger explains in one of those videos where he speaks to a lot of people, and he talks to Susan, for example, and then he says this, like these kind of people, when they are really when you have these moments, you can see their true faces. Something needs to happen. We had that also in the Quran studies, right? Like people who said they believe that, for example, insurance is prohibited when the time came when it was for their own benefit, and then they started believing that insurance is like a blessing from God. You know what changed? Immediately something changed, and that thing would change. Like they think it's for their it's good for them, right? They are gaining something from it, but actually they are losing their souls. But most of the people, if there is something to gain, if it's money or power or anything at all, like people can easily forget about God, forget about the message. What is it called? Conceal. Yes, conceal is right. Like they can easily conceal anything that is true. And in the footnotes, I want to read the footnote. The footnote says, despite their recognition of God's mathematical miracle in the Quran, the corrupted religious leaders tried for many years to conceal this awesome miracle. Many of them admitted that they resented the fact that Rasul not them was blessed with the miracle. Yes, this was one of the biggest reasons, right? Like, why was he selected as a messenger and not them? Because of course, the reason why they don't accept Rashad as the messenger is because of their egos. And this is like, why is he selected? Like, I'm a better person than he is. The devil did the same thing, right? When God told the angels to bow down before Adam, he didn't do. All the angels did accept him, and he said, when God asked him, he said, like, because I'm like, you made me from fire and him from earth, so I'm better than him. It's all because of the ego, right? And this is proving it. God, if only the miracle came to us without the messenger and the messengership as a test, I think still today, like most of the Sunni Muslims, Shia Muslims, like most of them would believe in this miracle, right? As they have believed in the beginning. They accepted it because why shouldn't they accept it? It's proving that this book is from God. Like it's proving their point as well. But God has a very unique system, and He does things very amazingly. He's sending this most amazing miracle ever. But then, with a messenger, and when he does it in this way, people who believe in the miracle suddenly start not believing it. Only because Rashad was sent as a messenger. Like this is to show their real intention, right? But this is the way how God works, of course. It is they who chose the straying instead of guidance, and the retribution instead of forgiveness. Consequently, they will have to endure hell. And only for what? Only because of their egos, right? Like if they could kill their egos, put their egos aside, and say, okay, this is the most amazing miracle ever. Like it's also proving all the other miracles in the Quran. So this is like the biggest and the best miracle ever. And why is it so strange that God has sent messenger, it's not so strange. It's like very logical actually. But it is a test, of course, and they will see that they have changed the hell, the hereafter, heaven with hell, actually. But they will see that when they die. The moment when they die, they are going to see what kind of a big mistake that they have made. This is because God has revealed the scripture, bearing the truth, and those who dispute the scripture are the most ardent opponents. This was also in the footnotes 167. It was from 74 up to 76. 176. Yeah, it's definitely all because of the ego. Yeah, that's why God says to us, right? He says, kill your egos. This is really important. And since I said that there is this voice recording where the messenger, please remind me after the study, the messenger speaks about the ego, and he says that if someone is going to say some bad things about submission or anything like that, and he says you shouldn't get angry, because if you get angry, then that is a sign that you still have ego. Yeah, something like that. So let's talk about it after the study, inshallah. But so we need to be very careful. That's like what I want to say actually. Like even sometimes we think, oh, we are so righteous, we are doing the good thing, we are working on it, we are submitters. It's all good, right? Like we need to hope that we are good. We need to ask help from God. We need to do our utmost best. We need to remind ourselves of all those kind of things. But still, we need to be very careful. Sometimes we can how do you say that? Like we can. Like he even says, the messenger even says, you should not compare yourself with the unbelievers, and because they are very bad and they are very bad, that they are very bad doesn't mean that we are very good. Yeah, I think that's similar what he was saying actually. So we need to be very careful with that. So because they are very bad, because they don't believe in the Quran, because they are not upholding the Quran alone and doing all these bad things, right? Because they are so bad doesn't mean that we are just so good and so perfect and so high. Like we need to be very careful.
So sorry, Brother Jaffer, to interrupt, but I think Brother John has mentioned that on the stream
Yeah.
the video, the audio is repeating itself twice for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I think we should fix it, God willing.
I don't
I
know
don't
what
know
I
what
can
I
do
can do
about
about
it.
it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, what could be the reason? Let's see. I think maybe you have more than one thing that is listening for
Oh, I
Oh,
have
I
my
have my
headphones.
headphones.
I have
I
my
have my
yeah,
headphones.
headphone.
maybe yeah, you have your headphone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
should
should
I
I
Okay.
should I
should
You
I
know
take
that
that up?
that's good that you're using the headphones because that could be one way of maybe having some kind of feedback loop. I'm just trying to think. Maybe what you can do is at least while you're talking, maybe you can mute the other volume thing if that is fluctuating for some reason, and we can try that.
You mean
You
the
mean the
USB
USB
microphone?
microphone?
So you have two audio things, right? Two
Yeah.
audio
Yes.
Yes.
sections in there, right?
Okay.
So I
Okay,
Yes.
think
yes.
maybe we may have to mute one of them. I guess maybe.
Oh, I
Oh,
Um,
I
understand. I
understand. I
understand what you
understand what
mean.
you mean.
Okay.
Okay.
I
yeah.
I
think
think
I'll
I'll
mute
mute
this one
this one
first.
first.
On which
On
is on
which is on
Jitsi. I
Jitsi, I
think. Let me
think.
do
Let me
that.
do that.
Try that.
Try that one. Okay, I did that. Oh, wait. And now, can you maybe check?
Yeah, let me check.
And I'm okay, testing now. Testing, testing. Do you hear me again? Is this double?
Okay, I think it's fine now.
Is it fine now?
No. Hold on. Yeah, let me check. I think it's okay now. Maybe. Let me check. One second. I have to refresh. One second.
Is it fine now?
No. Hold on. There's a big delay, so we have to wait a little bit to see if any changes you made. Uh, maybe you're okay. So maybe it's the mic that you need to mute, and the macOS capture probably already
Brother
shifted up.
Felipe saying the voice is okay on YouTube
Yeah,
now.
someone on WhatsApp,
Yeah,
on WhatsApp said it's okay now on YouTube. Yeah.
yeah. I think we should be good now. Yes, brother. Go ahead, please. Yeah, sorry about the interruption.
To go here again. Yes, this should be fine. Okay. Thank you, brother. Yeah. Okay, so we are left. We are 177. Yes, this is also like one of the most things that we should know, and a very important topic as well. It's the title is Righteousness Defined. So God says, righteousness is not turning your faces towards the east or the west. Righteous are those who believe in God, the last day, the angels, the scripture, and the prophets, and they give the money cheerfully to the relatives, the orphans, the needy, the traveling alien, the beggars, and to free the slaves. And they observe the contact prayer salat and give the obligatory charity zakat. And they keep their word whenever they make a promise. And they steadfastly persevere in the face of persecution, hardship, and war. These are the truthful, these are the righteous. Yeah, so, this could be a very a topic which is going to be discussed a lot, right? People who would say, like, for me, righteousness is this. Someone else would say something else, right? They could say, yeah, but this is not righteousness, that is righteousness. So, but if we look at the Quran, God is explaining us in detail what righteousness is. and he gives the best description of righteousness, right? So, and he says righteousness is not turning your faces towards the east or the west. Righteousness are those who believe in God, the last day, the angels, the scripture, and the prophets, and they give the money cheerfully to the relatives, the orphans, the needy, the traveling alien, the beggars, and to free the slaves. So also here we can see the list of the people that we need to give the money to, and in also in the rightful order, right? The messenger also explains this, of course, to us when we give zakat. We need to follow a specific order, and that is we need to start with our parents, then our the people who are close to us, and then the orphans, the needy, the traveling alien. So we need to follow that order. And the reason why we need to follow that order is because God says so, right? So we cannot make things up by ourselves. We can't say, no, I'm going to give like charity to someone in Africa, or I'm going to open a school in Africa while your parents need money, right? So you can't do that. It's also not really logical. So that's important to follow the commandments of God exactly how He has commanded us, right? He tells us how to do things. So that's also very strange, right? Like God tells us how to do our prayers. For example, He says, when you pray, don't make it too silent or too loud. Like you need to do it in between. But still, people are saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it sometimes silently, and sometimes I'm going to do it loudly. That is also idol worship, because you're idolizing your own ideas, or you're idolizing someone who told you to pray in that manner. So what we need to do is we need to just follow everything that God has said to us, that we need to do exactly how He told us to do, because the Quran is also very detailed, right? So like you have so many people who don't follow the Quran only. They say, yeah, we need the hadith, we need the sunnah of the of Muhammad. And what is the reason? Yeah, the reason is because the Quran is not detailed. We can't find every detail in the Quran, while God specifically says that this book is very detailed. Like it's extremely detailed, actually. Specifically, when you read, like I was reading the verses about when someone dies, then you need to the money needs to be given to specific persons at a specific amount. There were so many details, and then I'm thinking, like, the people who believe that the Quran is not detailed, when they are reading these verses, how can they still say that it's not detailed, right? So there are so many details. Everything is mentioned here. Everything that we need for our salvation is mentioned in the Quran. Discouraging capital punishment. O you who believe, equivalence is the law decreed for you when dealing with murder. The free for the free, the slave for the slave, the female for the female. If one is pardoned by the victim's kin, an appreciative response is in order, and an equitable compensation shall be paid. This is an elevation from your Lord and mercy. Anyone who transgresses beyond this incurs a painful retribution. And of course, the Messenger of the Covenant, he also gives this example, and he says, like, if a woman kills a man, like, the punishment is not death, like, because it's not equivalent, right? Because it needs to be in the same line. Or if a slave kills a free person, or a free person kills a slave. So there we need to find the right basis for it. And in the footnote it says, the Quran clearly discourages capital punishment. Every kind of excuse is provided to spare lives, including the life of the murderer. The victim's kin may find it better under certain circumstances to spare the life of the murderer in exchange for an equitable compensation. Also, capital punishment is not applicable if, for example, a woman kills a man, or vice versa. So it needs to be the same basis. And sometimes people who like atheists, for example, they think that God says in the Quran, oh, you need to kill people for this and that reason, and there's always reason for them to kill someone, right? The Messenger also gives an example of this. He says, just give me, when you follow the rules of those other people, if you want to have someone to be killed, you can always find a reason. Like, okay, he's not praying 5 times a day, let's kill him. Like, okay, he did this thing, okay, let's kill him, right? So, but in the Quran we can see that it clearly discourages capital punishment, and it says also like every kind of excuse is provided to spare lives, right? So this is what God wants. So, but if there is really a clear thing that has happened and someone killed another person, and if you look at all the basis things, if it works, and if the family members really want compensation for it, that the person who did that bad thing, that he or she needs to be killed, then that is their choice, of course. But God, there is a reason why God is talking about another way. He's saying, if the victim's kin may find it better under certain circumstances to spare the life of the murderer. And the messenger also talks about it, because if you kill someone, not only that person is involved. Sometimes that person has a child, or has children, or has a wife. They have also a family members who are like, it's not their fault if someone makes some mistakes, right? It's not the fault of his child, for example. So, but there is always a way that we can find, right, to save life. 179. Equivalence is life-saving. Is a life-saving law for you, O you who possess intelligence, that you may be righteous. Yeah. So this verse is, it says for the possess intelligence. So for the ones who will, who will try to understand all these messages that God has sent. Because there is a reason for everything, right? There is a reason why God is telling all these things to us. Write a will. 180. It is decreed that when death approaches, you shall write a will for the benefit of the parents and relatives equitably. This is a duty upon the righteous. If anyone alters a will he had heard, the sin of altering befalls those responsible for such altering. God is hearer, knower. If one sees gross injustice or bias on the part of a testator and takes corrective action to restore justice to the will, he commits no sin. God is forgiver, most merciful. Like we almost every, like with this will, the reason why it's very important is people are killing each other. Like sometimes there is a lot of money involved, sometimes not that much, but still the family of the person who dies, if, for money and for those kind of things, they can kill each other. And I have seen this so many times, on television, that someone killed another person because they didn't they had inherited some land or some money, and it's a very bad thing. So it's very important to make sure that when death approaches, this is definitely a commandment of God, something that we read here in the Quran. It says, you shall write a will for the benefit of the parents and relatives equitably. And this is a duty upon the righteous. So if you want to be a righteous person, then this is something that we need to do. And we can clearly see that it's, of course, helpful, because before you die, you tell them where you want the money to go, or you want the things to happen. So I think I am also at my 40 minutes. God willing, I will stop here. If there are any questions or things that you brothers and sisters want to add, please go ahead.
MashaAllah. Thank you, brother.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Thank you, brother.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah, thank you. Good study.
MashaAllah, thank you.
Yeah, so in 181 and 82, like if God says, if anyone alters a will he had heard, the sin of altering befalls those responsible for such altering. And it says, if one sees gross injustice or bias on the part of the testator and takes corrective action to restore justice to the will. That kind of things happen a lot, right? So people just try to, for money, they're prepared to do so many things, especially when there's a lot of money involved. Yeah, mashallah. Like so many verses that we have read today, like in 2 pages, we have read, God was speaking about, the things that He created, right? And that there is a reason for everything that He did, the creation, the smallest things, even the things that we don't know and that we don't even see, things that have benefit for us. For example, in our bodies, right? There are so many creatures in our bodies, so many molecules. We have our DNA. We have these amazing machines that are working in our bodies that we don't know of. Like we know, of course, the main things. Like we have a heart, we have lungs, we have so many things. But in our bodies, there are so many small creatures that God has created, that just work, and we can see those creatures sometimes with microscope or with special technology that we have. How amazing it is, and how amazingly it works. And it is definitely a proof, like sufficient proof for people who understand, God says, especially now, right? So people should definitely, and I think when you have more information, when you witness like more things, of course the responsibility is bigger, right? If I'm not mistaken, the messenger was talking about, we humans. There is when we came to this world, God places something in our hearts, right? That something that tells us that God exists. But the jinns, the companions, they don't have that. So what they have instead is they have a longer lifespan. And if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was around 300 years, I believe. So this means that the companions, they have like more things to see. They can travel, from here to the end of the universe. And then they can see, like they can dive into the depthness of the sea and see things that we, for example, can't see, but they can see and witness it. So with that, with those things, the responsibility is, of course, bigger. The same counts for the miracle, of course, right? Like we are witnessing the biggest miracle ever. So our responsibility is bigger than those who have seen. They have seen also miracles, but it's not the same, of course. Yeah, and then we have spoken about, we have read about the idols disown their idolizers. The Sunni Shiites or the Christians or the Jews, doesn't matter who, people idolizing, the saints, the prophets, the messengers, and they will disown them. And we have read about the prohibition, the things that are prohibited, four meats that are prohibited. Like in 2 pages only, like so many topics actually. The human tragedy, God says, when the people, they're following their parents blindly. Everything that we have read here is like a huge topic actually that we can talk about. Like 2 pages and then so much information. MashaAllah.
MashaAllah, brother. Also, when you're talking about how people, like how they idolize human beings and they uh, make it seem like it's from them, but like we know as submitters that like they just brought the truth, and that was God alone. Me and Brother John were talking about this yesterday about how like will people like the Christians, for example, they have put God's attributes and they have put it like um to a human being, and if you really think about it, it's just like so gross and it's so bad, like Jesus himself came, proclaiming the truth, and then evil people make up lies um, and attribute these things, attribute the greatness of God, and attribute them to a human being, and if you really think about it, like God says in the Quran, it's a blasphemy, and I can't remember the exact verse, but like he tells us like how bad it is, in the Quran.
Yeah, brother, mashallah.
Okay, so I just had one thing to add to what was discussed about the verses, and then something else I want to share. So I think it's very important for us to remember that all these proofs that God is referring to, that these are overwhelming signs of God, that God is reminding us every day, and God says these are sufficient proofs for people who understand. So like when we look at these things, we have to think about what God is referring to here. Because if you see like the alternation of night and day and ships that roam the sea, etc. I mean, all these things happen on a daily basis, and everybody, disbelievers, believers, see it. But the difference is that the believers use it to their benefit, to remember God, to think about it, and to reflect. This is a way of remembering God and growing our soul. And at the same time, this strengthens us also in terms of the proofs that we see, that it shows to us that God is controlling everything, and that His intelligent plan is in place. And without Him being in charge of all of this, nothing like this can ever continue. Even if it started in the first place. Um, and the other thing is, God is reminding us, in every page, pretty much, of the Quran that we see, verses talking about, idol worship, and Brother Jafar talked about, people worshiping their ego, so that is the most common idol. And, but along with these idols, these verses are referring to people who, are idols that lead other people to hell, And I think that's a very common idol when you have these religious leaders and scholars that are leading people to hell, and people are idolizing other idols like Jesus and Mary and Muhammad and Ali and the saints, etc., as it says in the footnote. All of these people who are worshiping these idols, eventually, these idols will disown them, and we can clearly see who those people are going to be, like how these people are completely immersed in their idol worship. Human beings have such a tendency to worship idols, mainly because and that's why God says most humans are destined for hell, and then most people who believe do not do so without coming some sort of idol worship, right? And so Satan has made it his business that he is going to target the submitters. He's going to target the people who have the real potential of making it to paradise. So he makes sure that people fall in some kind of idol worship, so he can have them nullify their works. And mashallah, we talked about the Quran alone, that we must follow the Quran alone if we don't want to be idol worshippers. And yet we see many people, well, mashallah, I'm glad you mentioned circumcision, among the examples. And so, many people end up following some kind of leader, or some kind of, self-proclaimed religious scholars, etc., who put these things in place. Now, none of that would have been possible if these people truly, made the Quran their only source of religious guidance, like something like circumcision, or other innovations cannot be part of the Quran. If you're following the Quran alone, if you're truly following the Quran alone, and so when people fall for all of these things, I mean, they naturally become idol worshippers, right? And mashallah, I mean, that's something that we have to, remind ourselves, that obviously, the difference between a monotheist submitter and an idol worshiper is, heaven and hell. No matter how righteous these people are, no matter how many times they pray to God, if there is some kind of idol worship, the works are nullified because they fail the test. So I think we have to be very
Yeah, brother, mashallah. One of the biggest benefits what I have seen actually is to be together with the believers. That is something that really helps. When with you are at least with one other person who is also a submitter. When you talk about things, you most of the times the topic is all about God, right? Like you're enjoying weather, for example, then you know you talk about God. You're eating, like praising God. Everything. Yeah, like I think that's very important. To force ourselves to be with believers will definitely help in that way. Definitely. Oh, inshallah, brother. Yeah, maybe we can, go one by one with these topics. I think we can definitely, talk about it a little bit. For example, about what was it? Yeah, like we already spoke about, like the creation of God, right? The winds, the creatures that God has created, etc. Also, we talked about idolizing, saints, prophets, or anything else. And most of the time, the reason is because people think that those are the ones who are doing it, instead of knowing that God is the one who is controlling and doing everything. and also where the title says a human tragedy, that people just blindly follow their parents. We talked about Satan prohibits lawful things. That's also like one of the most important things we need to be careful with. The prohibitions, of course, that there are only 4 types of meat that is prohibited. Besides that, nothing is prohibited for us to eat. And the other things here is, and the reason is, there's just 2 pages, but so many important topics here. We should maybe repeat for the ones who are listening to through YouTube. Righteousness defined. We have discouraging capital punishment and writing a will. I think we can maybe talk a little bit more about those things. Yeah, brother, like, because so really like very heavy topics actually, and very important for us to follow all these commandments. Yes, brother.
Ne yapıyorsun ya? İğrenç. Pislik yapma.
Yeah, but I only stopped sharing the screen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, so the only thing that I changed is the I stopped sharing the screen. Besides that, I didn't touch anything. Huh? Oh yeah, I remember so, but I changed it again. Like it was yeah.
So I
So I
changed that
changed that
too.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Okay,
put
I
it
put
back
it back in
in the
in
same
the same
place, but
place,
I don't
but I
know.
don't know.
Maybe we
Maybe
can
we
go
can
over
go
it
over it
quickly
quickly
again
again
to see
to
if it
see
will
if it
help.
will help.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, only
Yeah,
me,
only
right?
me,
I
right?
can
I
see.
can see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
this
macOS.
macOS.
But Shalom,
But Shalom,
I don't
I don't
see
see
the
the
this
this
the
the
green,
green,
orange,
orange,
red.
red.
It's not
It's not
working
working
when you
when
guys
you
are
guys are
speaking. So
speaking. So
with Mac
with Mac
Audio
Audio
Capture,
Capture,
that doesn't
that
work
doesn't
now.
work now.
So I need
So
to
I need to
change that.
change
Like,
that. Like,
should I
should I
like
like
remove and
remove and
then
then
install again?
install again? Ah. Oh, you can hear my kids. Yeah, my daughter. Yeah, she has a very loud voice. So,
So you
so
want me
you
to
want me to
change
change
things or
things or
like?
like? Okay. No, it's not showing anything. Properties.
There's an
Restart
option there
capture. Oh, now
to
it
restart
works.
capture. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
now it works. It started
Check
working. Yeah.
whatever
Oh,
happened
so
before.
easy. Okay. Now it's
Yeah, but I
working.
think, yeah, but I think what brother um, um, Raphael was saying about the echoing happening.
Oh, now it works. Yes,
Yeah,
now it
yeah,
works.
now it's working. Yeah, yeah, yeah, it's fine now. So, I don't know if we can hear us.
Brother.
Yeah, we can hear us too. So everything's fine now. Okay. So, yeah, now everything's fine. Yeah, yeah, it's good now. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's working
the
now.
thing is, yeah, the thing is, yeah. So this person, her name is Sidra. So she somehow got my number. I don't know who gave her my number, but she messaged me, and then before she said anything, like she said, I told her, okay, I am aware of the conversation, and then. Uh, among other things, I addressed the only thing I guess that's left is to address is about unity. Like God says, we should be united. So pretty much the question is, God says we should be united. So why aren't we on this submission Discord server group? And so I answered some of the other questions in one line pretty much, but when she asked this one, I felt that maybe it needs some more explanation. And so I told her, I said, you wanna join our study. God says we should be united, so join our study. And then she says maybe another time. I don't know if she said she had some issues with the time or whatever. She says she hasn't downloaded the app, and I told her, I said, so our study has been around longer than the Discord group. So I told her the first person who even had the studies being broadcasted for submitters online. So like people should, if they want to be united, there's no reason for us to be not united with us. Like you can't use that point to say people have to be united, so they have to be united with you, on your platform, or not on the platform that already has been in existence. If you have a certain reservation against joining us, only then you will go and create another server, another group, and have your own studies. Then you're not united. I can say that, right? I mean, relatively speaking. So she said something like, I don't know, I'm busy or not. I don't know what she said about that. But then I said, okay, how about like, we this study's on YouTube, so we can talk about it after. And if you're still around, you can hear it. So she said yes, she'd love to hear everybody's point of view, but I'm not sure if she's even listening. But I guess the idea of being united with people, we can still talk about the general topic, like what it means to be united, and why we are not quote unquote united with certain individuals, that run these platforms, and they want us to be part of it, or they try to force us to be part of it. Um, so, what do you guys think? Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
To set the bar extremely high.
Hmm. John, we can barely hear you because of background noise. Um, hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Right. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Hmm. Right. So the thing is like that verse where God talks about a place where people are ridiculing making fun of God and His revelations. You leave and you come back, right? But that's not. But that's a different situation, right? For example, when we're talking about the submission group or the submission app, for example, in our Quran studies, these are Quranic studies, right? We have like the same kind of Quranic studies that you would have in a masjid, for example, like when the Messenger of the Covenant had Quranic studies, those were studies that were focused around the believers. People who were part of the group of believers were going to these studies and joining the studies, and they would read verses from the Quran, and someone would lead a study. A different person, pretty much every time, would lead the study, and then they would have comments or questions about that, and they would discuss that at length and then answer other questions that pretty much similar to the format that we have here, I believe, right? And the thing is that this like if you look at all the studies by Dr. Khalifa, we have so many audios, over 80 audios. In all of those studies, none of them is like, hey, I'm inviting this mullah, inviting this imam from this other masjid. Let's have a debate with them and let's show them how we are right, and use that to attract a crowd. Like, hey, we can have a debate, and we can score 10 points against you and stuff. Like, that's not what they did, right? God tells us, like you said in the Quran, God tells us to force ourselves to be with the believers, and the subtitle says Quranic study groups. So those are commandments from God, um, to encourage us to be with the believers, to study the Quran, to be with the believers, so we can be reminded and we can help each other overcome our doubts. This is not a place, or a time for us to have debates with idol worshippers and false messengers, which is openly what they have been doing, including rabbis and priests and people who left submission, people who claim to be messengers. They allow them to come in this group. And no matter what clarifications they present, I have seen them, you know, spread their nonsense. So that's not. So God tells us to force us to be with the believers. He tells us to run away from these kinds of people, the hypocrites, the idol worshippers, the false messengers, most dangerous people on earth that we have to run away from to save ourselves, because these promote doubts and stuff, right? If I want to have a debate, I can go have a debate. I can go to a conference of an idol worshiper, let's say, have a debate with them so that people can hear the truth, right? But when it comes to my Quranic studies, the Messenger of the Covenant, I haven't seen any Quranic studies where they had, they call them Quranic study, or Quran study or Grand Quran study or whatever, and then have, these idol worshippers come up and do debates and stuff. That's one thing. And then I think you touched on the other part also is the hypocrisy behind a lot of the stuff that's going on. Like, for example, saying that they don't believe in circumcision, and they don't believe that, or they don't know, saying that they don't believe that circumcision is part of the practices of our religion, but then put articles on circumcision saying that it was a covenant between God and Abraham, citing verses from different scriptures, and trying to, make it sound like it was circumcision as the covenant, of God with Abraham. We know the covenant of God with Abraham is mentioned in Surah 2, the same Surah we read today, and it's not about circumcision at all. But that article has filled with nonsense, and even though, and there's many other articles they've written about God knows all kinds of trash. But this is the one that I remember being presented at one point, and then they said we don't believe in it anymore, and this is not part of religion. So then I went back and I saw all this stuff, all these lies being attributed in that article, and then they say, no, we stand by it, everything that's written here, but somehow they're giving people the impression they don't believe it, you know, and then also them saying that we refuse to talk to them or whatever. I mean, I've been on their platform a few times, more than a few times, and I've had these discussions, but they don't care. I've discussed with them privately. I've discussed with them in the channel, and they don't care about my point of view, anyways. So there's no point in going back again and again and trying to present the same thing. If they decide, they say we don't take, like I've talked about this before. Like there's one person, he was a rabbi, he was a submitter before, then he became a rabbi. Now this person had information about the Quran's mathematical code. He even learned Arabic, and he was there trying to convert people. And he was trying to convert me to joining him. And then he was saying, "Oh yeah, nobody takes him seriously," and then he came on the chat and started humiliating, started like a very demeaning sort of a discussion. Sorry, John. John, I think you have a bad connection, probably, or is it mine? Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, brother. I think it's
Okay,
them,
okay,
John.
John. Yeah, I think. So what was I saying? I was saying that. Yeah, so I think like this is something that has been talked about many times, and the only thing I see is to protect ourselves from all of these people is to not join them, right? The God says, run for your life. Do not befriend the hypocrites. Do not befriend these people who are lying about God all the time. And I mean, there's so many other things as well. But to me, these are the most important things, right? My
Type of,
belief.
I mean, it's proof, self-evident proof. He doesn't.
Okay, John, we lost you again. Um, so, so yeah, so I mean, um, this is something that God tells us to do to force ourselves to be with the believers. And if you're going to have idol worshippers, hypocrites, fake messengers, and these people, come into the group and and have discussions like that are unfocused discussions, going left and right in all directions, and all kinds of people are there. You cannot have a focused Quran study, and you're not forcing yourself to be with the believers. You're just forcing yourself to be with all of these people that you want to convert, right? Which is not the point of a Quran study. It's no longer a Quran study if it's just all you invite all these people in there. Like we've seen, for example, with the Messenger of the Covenant, when there were people in the group, like this guy from Switzerland who he believed was a spy. But the thing was that he told him not to join their Quran studies, not because he was a spy. He said, "Don't join our Quran studies because you're a bad influence." Right? He clearly says it. So we don't want bad influences around us. Because we know the messenger explained, that if we have even a little bit of doubt, we are in the lowest ranks of submitters. And all these people want to do is promote doubt. Yes, you're saying you're strong, which I doubt. That. I mean, if someone's saying they believe they are, then obviously they need to check themselves, because that's what we've believed when we came down to it, that we're strong. Of course, we're gonna choose God, right? So I'm not gonna think, oh, I'm a solid believer, so I'm gonna sit around the hypocrites and disbelievers, and of course, no doubt is ever gonna come to me because of that, you know because I am such a good believer. It's not like that, right? I mean, we're human beings, and if people promote doubts, God says hypocrites rub off on each other, and so eventually those doubts will stay in my mind, And even, the message says, even if there's a little bit of doubt, right? So why should I want to risk my submission and my faith to have even that little bit of doubt, which will happen, which does happen clearly, and I've felt it, that if I go into a gathering of hypocrites or false messengers. Like that clearly happens, like human beings. That's what human beings are. Like they rub off on each other in this way. So I'm not going to be a part of it. And then the other thing was about consultation. So I mean, God says we consult with the believers. Nothing wrong with that. Then another thing, they were saying something about afternoon prayer being wrong. I'm not sure exactly why they're saying that, but I think she mentioned something like we're doing our afternoon prayer too early. So, but I don't know why they're saying that. Obviously, and they have to make their case to tell us why they think that way. But based on what we see in the appendix that the Messenger of the Covenant has presented about when the prayer is observed, I think it is in complete harmony with that. I don't see any contradiction there. And I don't know if there's anything else I left, but this is pretty much it all that I wanted to say.
Mashallah, brother. You pretty much covered everything. Go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry. I think John, you were saying something, but your voice kept cutting in and out.
Oh, is it cutting in and out?
Now it's okay, I think.
Okay, yeah, I'm in a bad area. I'm on the highway. Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I mean, when I was approached by him a couple different times, Naveed specifically. I mean, just going over there, the amount of unrest and like vain talk and nonsense, and it was very off-putting. And I went. This was in 2022. I mean, I went. And I told you, like you weren't even objected to it, but like and that's more, in the sense. I mean, we didn't know about. I think the circumcision, their stance on circumcision. That's just one. That's just one part of it, and then, but yeah, I mean, like there's people that are just. It's very a lot of vain talk. In the Quran it says they don't engage in vain talk, and just some of the stuff, there, but not to mention the part where he said nobody takes the rabbi seriously. I mean, what if I was on the verge of accepting what the rabbi was saying in submission? I mean, how is he so sure? How can he speak? What if somebody actually took that guy seriously? So that's, that's very not cautious. Yeah. I mean, that's like saying, a Satanist is in your group. Everybody knows you're Satanist. It's okay because nobody's going to take him serious. We all know better. No, like so bad, how are you so sure, man? There really may be somebody that's on the verge and that could get convinced. Let's say he wasn't. He just wasn't that smart. I mean, like you're gonna now you're facilitating in a sin that has caused this person to be led astray. I mean, we know God guides, but allowing. Given a platform, given a safe haven for idol worshippers to promote their message under the guise of righteousness, under the guise of unity. I mean, this is the same thing we've seen in the past with all. I mean, there's been plenty of precedents, but yeah, I mean, we don't. There's we set the, just because have set the standard extremely high, and especially when it comes to idol worship, because this is the human being's tendency, and any hint of idol worship is, especially when it's so obvious. Like the messenger says, if you go to any other source in the Quran for any religious guidance, be it from old books, such as the scriptures and stuff, or cultures, traditions, he said you're a disbeliever. I mean, this is laid out in his videos and is in the Quran as well, and it should be so simple and so clear. But I think many should. I mean, it's a tragic case for a lot of people, but it's. I mean, we read the verses today. Brother Jaffer talked about it. I mean, we all have our own necks to worry about, so I am not going to put my soul at risk while cohabitating with some people under, the pretense of
Mm-hmm.
unity when all the
Mm-hmm.
points you just brought up also
Mm-hmm.
validates what all of this. So that's all I had.
Mm-hmm. Inshallah. Yeah.
Mashallah. Yeah, brother, you pretty much covered everything. But like also like why would a believer, want to join that kind of Quran study? Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's just gonna cause doubt, and you're not like it's like it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's like going in, it's ego that people think, like you had said, Brother Suleiman, that,
Mm-hmm.
people are so powerful and tough and internally strong that they can go and cohabitate um, uh, in such places, and not come out unscathed, because
Mm-hmm.
eventually you're going to become like these people. You're going to become
Mm-hmm.
hypocritical, two-faced. When you're
Mm-hmm.
asked about these circumcision examples, also advocating siding with transgressors. The other issue that should have been clear as day, and calling, the rape, butchering, murdering, and this has to be said. I'm sorry if it is a little
Mm-hmm.
morbid for people, but it was referred to as collateral damage by this Sajid guy. Naveed is here supporting this, and he's calling. Uh, um, because I brought this up, I was like, what do you think about, like, how do you advocate this type
Mm-hmm.
of behavior that is clearly condemned in the Quran,
Mm-hmm.
all through the Surah 2 and other surahs? God doesn't shy away from talking about the children of Israel and the things that they've done and this type of
Mm-hmm.
evil behavior, and then it's referred to as collateral damage. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, how can
Yeah,
these
which
people
we all know,
say
man.
this thing? It's so terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Right, brother.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the type of stuff that, like, I mean, personally, I've seen, and it's I run from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
of
run,
course.
I
I mean,
literally
that's
run
what
for my life from
God
this.
God tells us to do that. To run away
Mm-hmm.
from such people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, mashallah. It's not needed to do something like that, it's just an extra thing you put in your way. And we are human beings. Like God, like doesn't say not to to be near to such people, for no reason. And um like even if a person says that, oh well, even if I talk with a hypocrite, even if I even if I'm near him or whatever, I'm not going to be like him, you know? It's not how humans are, Sometimes you just become like someone even you are not aware of what you are becoming,
Mm-hmm.
Like we sometimes forget about us, like forget about ourselves, and we forget about how we change. So by the time you are going to realize that, by the time you are going to tell yourself, "Oh well, I've changed. Like I've been far away from God more."
MashaAllah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that video that Brother John you mentioned on TikTok, where this was being said that God supports such a nation. I mean, we already have an appendix from from the Messenger of the Covenant, based on the verses of the Quran, where the Messenger of the Covenant has clearly explained, who God supports, right? And extreme libertarianism is just one of those things, right? Just one of those things is that, there is extreme libertarianism in a nation that God supports. But it doesn't say that, for example, like if you put it in the books that there's absolute freedom of religion or there's absolute freedom in, let's say, your homosexuality or whatever, that you become a nation that is supported by God. It's quite the contrary in terms of some of these things. Like for example, when he says a nation that, not a nation, but I mean a community that tolerates homosexuality, for example, may be hit by an earthquake. right? So, I mean, you allow people to have disbelief in whatever way, shape, or form they want, but doesn't mean that they are living the life, based on the consequence from the government. They're based on fear of God. So that's one of the things. Like, you have absolute freedom when it comes to you practicing your own faith, right? Um, but then there's so many other things, right? Regarding people's properties and lives, for example, is a very important one. And God tells us about everything about these people, what they did in the past, and what is happening with them now. All of that is not Quranic. So we cannot say, for example, that God supports a certain nation, because only thing we have to say about it in support of it is that because there is absolute freedom of religion, which there is very little freedom in reality, right? I mean, so saying that alone doesn't even logically make any sense whatsoever. And in fact, it's wrong, because when so many a nation, for example, that oppresses people, a nation that doesn't have regard for people's land and their properties, and they discriminate against certain group of people. I mean, that's what Pharaoh was doing, right? And God, we clearly saw what happened to Pharaoh, and God supported the believers, who followed Moses. So it was quite the opposite. So I cannot, for example, if someone tells me, God loves Pharaoh and his army, and God supports Pharaoh and his army, I'm gonna tell them, no, that's not the truth. Imagine if Pharaoh allowed people to practice whatever religion they wanted among the slaves. Would that make it any better? Like, would that fix everything else in terms of what he's doing? Like, he's murdering people and killing their sons and sparing their daughters? Of course not, right? If we are in complete submission to God, God is supporting those people.
God
And
supports the believers, supports
Mhm,
the righteous. It's all through the Quran, not people who
mhm,
transgress. And even during
mhm,
times of war, which this isn't even applicable to these verses, because these are transgressors. But you cannot kill innocent children, women of the opposing. The believers can do that, even to the worst enemies of God. There's specific, and if they want peace, you stop, you refrain. And not to get into, I mean, any other,
mhm,
very truthful realities about um, the globalism and some of these factions of people, which that alone should be proof for these people, but these people want to just trick themselves into
mhm,
thinking that the average American is fully aware of
mhm.
these types of people,
Yeah.
what their plans are, who they are
Mhm,
truly,
mhm,
and they're waking up, and but these people just quote unquote
mhm,
submitters don't. Oh, it's a conspiracy, but it's
mhm.
uh, but
Yeah, and
not
I
not
think.
to get not to digress into that, but that alone, it's
Mhm,
not that I have cold hard facts, but it's out there, and it is the absolute truth that people
mhm,
are beginning to see. And and that alone, even outside of for non-submitters, would not side with such tyrannical,
mhm,
diabolic agendas.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
even from a
exactly.
non-submitter perspective, it's and
Mhm,
yet here they are still supporting these people that are behind these takeovers.
MashaAllah.
mhm.
And,
Yeah, and I also think that this is such a first of all a disservice to submission, and such a way for Satan to repel people from submission. Because this is happening at a time when people are becoming aware, like as you know, more and more Americans and people around the world are becoming aware of the atrocities, and people are coming to submission. People are turning to Quran, coming to submission, and then you're telling people that no, God supports these people. And then you're repelling all of these people, right? I'm pretty sure many people come in maybe excited about the mathematical code or something, and then they come
Yes,
and say
this
all
is
this nonsense.
yes. Yes, bro. This is exactly the case I've seen. Like it's this. It's gonna be, had they had their way, it's gonna be the same case with so many
Mm-hmm.
people I've personally talked to that they're interested in submission, and then they see like, oh wait, look at all the oppression that's happening with
Mm-hmm.
like for the Arabs, what they've done. I mean, it's the same thing with the, it's the same thing that with this renewal of the message and all that, and like exactly like you're saying, they're gonna, if it's not the Arabs that they're gonna be repulsed by. I mean, they are being
Yeah.
repulsed, and if they, seeing submission or thinking submission is tied to such terrible, people and
Mm-hmm.
behavior,
Mm-hmm.
is gonna be a way to repel people, and like you said, sets
Mashallah.
a very bad
Mm-hmm.
example.
Yeah, mashallah, and that's another very good point. When the repulsion of people, right? Like this is one thing that I said before, and I received a lot of insult, but in return. But the thing is, like when these people boast about how many people they brought into submission, right? And I said, and how many have you repulsed? Really, I mean, when you like imagine the part where the sermon where the Master of the Covenant is talking, where hold on, my prayer alarm went on. So where they had the sermon about the respect for the messenger of God, where people would get repulsed by people shouting at the messenger, or people get repulsed from submission. Imagine coming to a masjid where everybody's dirty and stinky. Imagine. Uh, so we're trying to invite people. So if someone's repulsed, when you have false messengers and hypocrites and all these people coming in, and you have these people debating or fighting, or arguing all the time, that obviously is going to have moments of repulsion as well. And when you're saying these things like God supports people who are mass murdering innocent people, that's going to repulse so many people. And then guess what, and when you have someone like these, um and God knows who else is there. I only know some of these things because I've only been to this platform like a few times, literally, and the stuff I've seen is shocking. So like, God knows what else they're saying, but the thing that there's like just having those Jewish people in the group which know mathematical miracle and know verses from the Quran and know Arabic, and they're trying to mislead people. I mean, how many people could they have misled, right? I mean, and they're broadcasting to people, and people are coming because it's not like someone's joining the server. There are hundreds of people and more hundreds joining, and they're going from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000. It's like a few hundred people coming, and at the same time, a few hundred people leaving. So all those people are getting repulsed. Who's carrying the responsibility for the people that you genuinely repulsed? I mean, it's one thing that we talk about God alone and worshiping God alone, and someone just gets repulsed by that. I mean, that's not on us, right? But when you're setting bad examples, saying nonsense, and then someone gets repulsed as a result of that, genuinely, that falls on you. Now, if that person goes and becomes a disbeliever, you're going to go to hell with him. It's so scary, right?
Yeah, very true. And you have to think about it in this manner, like we've been discussing. If you're really concerned with yourself, and that's what uh, these other people should really do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, until we're all here until on this earth until our appointed time of death. So. But, yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
being careful in this regard and taking things very seriously, not saying things like nobody takes them seriously or having that type of
Mm-hmm.
attitude. I mean, that type of attitude shows a lack. It shows apathy. They're apathetic about the weights of sins, impossible sins and things that they could be a part of. And we, I mean, of course, we know as submitters, we have to be like that. Like as you just mentioned. So I mean, that type of tone and attitude reflects, like, not taking things seriously and being not engaging in self-evaluation, even if somebody, I mean, tells you to, like, hey, look, and they're trying to consult with you, like, to do consultation, and if you oppose it, you can't sit here and say that this person hasn't consulted with you just because you stick to you idolize your opinion, when the truth it should be very clear and it's very straightforward, and so may God protect us and protect any one who believes and submits wherever they may be.
Inshallah. And having said that, I think it's this group, like it was mentioned, like something about, so group of four and there's a cult leader and this and that. I mean, it's nothing like that in my opinion. And if you feel that, you can come and listen to our Quran studies, join our Quran studies, and have any questions like that. We can talk about them. I mean, we consult here based on what God says in the Quran. Like, for example, we recently had to change the timing because one of our participants was not able to make it. It was late for her, and so we all talked about it. We tried to come up with a time that worked for everybody, and that's how we consult, because it's something that pertains to everybody. So we talk about it. But like, I don't know, like, for some people, for example, like, uh, they think that you have to consult about everything you're doing in your personal life with your striving or whatever. I mean, I don't have to go and ask every person in the world that, what project I should work on next, or how I should do certain thing. I mean, yeah, if it pertains to someone else, like, I may consult them. Like, if I have um, something, I can't think of a very concrete example, but let's say we're in a masjid and I need to change the coffee maker or something. I mean, I may consult with people to say, like, what kind of coffee maker we should get, or what kind of machine you want for your drinks, or something like that. So I mean, we consult, just as an example, right? But I don't need to consult on, like, hey, like, I want to let's say, advertise submission in some group or whatever. Like, what should I do? Like, I mean, yes, I can consult with people too and find out suggestions. Um, but then if it's nothing pertaining to them, like, it's not related to them in any way. You have very much freedom in that, whatever you want to do for submission. So it's not like anytime you want to do something about submission, you have to come and ask every single person what you should be doing. So that applies to everybody. And we have, mashallah, many submitters doing different things, and they don't necessarily ask permission. A lot of time for people, it is another excuse to say you need our permission to go and do things. And I think that's just a way of Satan trying to make things difficult for submission so that people can't strive, because now they need everybody's permission to go and do something in the cause of God. So there's no such thing, in submission. You can do what you want for God, and you don't need everybody's approval in order to do that, right? You just need God's approval.
MashaAllah. Well done.
Yeah, so.
Mashallah.
All right. So, are there any other comments or questions from anyone? So, if not, God willing, we can conclude our study. So, Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to Brother Jaffer for leading the study, mashallah. And thank you all for participation. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Tuesday at noon. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. God bless you all.